All right. What's up, everyone? Good to see you, Smiley. Thank you so much for being here. And we are also joined here by April Jones, who goes by AJ, and Alana Pura, who are behind the scenes helping. So thank the two of you for supporting this and making this happen. So as folks are logging in right now, I'm just going to ask you to type in the chat what city you are logging in from. And thank you for joining us. So Smiley, what's up, man? It was so good to
Hey,
hang
my
out with you.
friend.
Good to have you here. It was so good that I'm glad we got to spend some time together last night. And I was watching Smiley. He was at Shack 15 and doing a book launch around the art and science of connection. And so that was really, really great to have dinner together last night. So how
Not
long
for
have
my
you?
book, for a friend's book, for Castley Killam's book, who's an
Yeah.
incredible public health researcher, social scientist, and social health expert. So it was great to see you there. It's great to be on with you and talk about a topic that we love.
Yeah. And I know I was trying to think about how long we've known each other. So I think it's 8 years since I did Hive Global Leaders Program in 2016. But um, let's just start. If you want to just give a short introduction of yourself.
Sure. My name is Smiley Poswolsky. I live in San Francisco, California. I've lived in the Bay Area for about 12 years. I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. And I am an author, a keynote speaker, a workplace belonging expert. And really my mission right now is to help companies and employees feel more connection and belonging at work and to center friendship in their lives. That's kind of a little summary of who I am. I'm also very much a community builder and very much passionate about people having more time and space for IRL in-person connection in their lives.
Yeah. And I really appreciate you as a friend, but also just as a someone who I see as an inspiring leader in this field and who is really doing this work and promoting, creating spaces and helping people be more seen and heard and understood at work and across the world. And you also do that as a friend too. So this, just to set the context of what this is. So this is our first LinkedIn Live, and this is something that I just started, and we're calling it Humanizing the Workplace. And where I'm going to be interviewing people who I see as luminaries in the field of workplace culture, human connection, and creativity. And so the reason I wanted to have you on as my first guest, Smiley, is partly because you're a dear friend and someone who I have a lot of respect for in the work that you're doing. But also 2 years ago, you were the first person that I drew in this monthly drawing in a playlist that I launched. And so I'm going to see if we could pop this drawing up on the screen. And this was in January 2022. I think this is your first Harvard Business Review article that was called How Leaders Can Build Connection in a Disconnected Workplace. And it was so fun to kind of turn that article that you did that really inspired me into this drawing and kind of break it down into one page. And there's this one quote in here that I think about, which was, "In today's lonely world, human connection is everyone's job." And I'm wondering if we could just start, if you would just describe a little bit more about what that means for you.
Yeah, well, first of all, I love that drawing, and I love all of your drawings. I think it's just like an interesting twist to take. You do it all these talks you go to and conferences, and to take someone's lecture or presentation or workshop and make it more visual, make it come to life in color and art is powerful. And even if you're just reflecting back the words, I think it makes me as the creative, as a thought leader, like think about my messaging in a different way when you see it like drawn in art. So that's just like something really powerful, and grateful for you for that. But yeah, I really think that for a long time, when it comes to things like human connection, belonging, people kind of put that on HR. Like, okay, like there's a team out there, like someone's job at this company is to plan team building. And maybe it's like the annual retreat, or it's an offsite, or it's a happy hour, or it's like the well-being day, or it's like something around connection. And it's like, we do that in July, or we do that like once a year in January.
Yeah.
And that isn't enough. And it's not enough because of how disconnected our society is, and thus our workforce, right? 1 in 2 Americans, according to the Surgeon General, are lonely. Literally 50% of Americans are lonely, and people show up at work facing that. So it's not enough to kind of say like, oh, we have someone in charge of culture. Even if we have an incredible, right, director of people or an entire people ops team or an entire culture team that's incredible, they do great work. It's not just their responsibility to build human connection. It's everyone's responsibility. Certainly every leader, every manager, right? But also every employee. Literally every person that walks through the door, whether they've been with the company, the organization for 20 years, for 2 years, for 2 weeks, like it's their responsibility to build more connection for themselves and figure out what they need to connect, and for their team and for their organization. And I know that's like, oh my gosh, Smiley, you're assigning more work. Like I literally have wall-to-wall Zoom meetings all day long, or Teams meetings or meetings. But yes, we have to build that human connection into the employee experience. And I think it's everyone's job. And I don't just mean like in the workplace, I mean in society. Like when we're out on the street, when we're in our neighborhoods, when we're in our communities, like we're not going to solve this loneliness epidemic if we're putting it on like, oh yeah, there's somebody in DC that's worried about that, or there's someone on the 8th floor that's worried about that. It's everyone's job.
Totally. Yeah, I like that reframe too, of just instead of pointing the finger to HR or somebody else should make this happen for me, to empower everyone to kind of take whatever steps it takes to open up the door to that. So
I'm just sorry to interrupt, Adam, but I'm just seeing on the comment culture C. I think that's Culture Craig's Craig Foreman writing, "We all own culture." Yes, 100%. That's right.
Yeah. So it's been so fun to see you traveling around the globe and bringing this message around workplace belonging and the power of human connection to so many different organizations and groups of people. And I love that we are doing it in different ways. But you inspire me a lot just in terms of knowing the research and the stats and creating the why that inspires people to take the next step. So, but I'm curious to hear a little bit more about your why and what has kind of driven you or created the motivation from your own life or your own story or experience that has really like made this, like lit this fire for you to be so passionate about this topic and to really spread the word.
Yeah, and I would say like there's several things throughout my life, but if I really think about the kind of big picture, a lot of people orient their work from a place of they didn't feel something, so they kind of see it as their mission to create that for others. For me, with this topic, it's kind of the opposite. Like, so I have always been someone, and this is not something I tried to do, that I trained for, that I read books for, that walks into a room and people gravitate toward and is able to kind of figure out like that person isn't being included. That person might feel left out. Like, what's up with that person? Like, that is a skill I've had that I've had literally since I was 3 years old.
Yeah.
Like since I was in kindergarten, like I would like befriend the person that was like getting picked on and made fun of.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't even know I was doing that. That's just what like, and I think as I've gotten older, I've realized like that is actually not just something random. Like that is my superpower. I have many things that I'm not good at, trust me, and many things that, you know, that I struggle with, but that is actually a gift, and it's a rare gift in this society, in this culture, to be able to be someone that people want to be around, that lots of different people want to be around from different backgrounds, experiences, that people just feel comfortable around. And I've leaned into that over the years. So I think that it's at its very core, like I think that is, you know, as I've deepened my thought leadership practice, I've realized I want to lean into that thing that is me, the essence of me being Smiley. And that is something I've really kind of taken to heart. I think there's also other experiences, you know, you're very familiar with Camp Grounded, which is a summer camp for adults, started by one of my best friends, all around in-person connection and human connection in the digital age. And my friend that started that passed away from a brain tumor at the age of 30. And I've really kind of seen part of his legacy as can I continue to bring this power of human connection to the workplace. So that is kind of a more recent experience, but really the through line is like, this is something that I care about, that I'm good at, that is my contribution, and that's enough.
And it's so needed. Yeah. And I got a wave of goosebumps when you said Levi's name, because I knew Levi well as well. And I thought, for me as well, the reason that I do this work is because of my mentor, Charlie Murphy. And I didn't think about this until this moment, but like when he passed away as well from ALS, and he was such an inspiration for me around creating spaces where people felt seen and heard using the arts. He wrote a book called Catch the Fire. And a lot of people, when they see me in the work that I'm doing, they're like, you caught the fire, Adam. I'm kind of continuing on his legacy and that spark that he's created. So it is beautiful to have somebody that we think of who is such a beacon for us, who we can kind of carry that through. So, and welcome, Nilu. Welcome, Sherry. Welcome, Paige. Good to see you all joining us here. So I've heard you say a lot that the future of work is around human connection. The future of work is belonging. I love this statement. I'm curious, like after all the research that you've done and all the organizations that you've been through, why you think that is the case?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the disengagement data now, 70% of Americans are disengaged. 1/5 of those people are so disengaged, they're actively undermining their coworkers' work. So they're literally getting paid by their company, by their organization to screw things up for that company, which is, I think, concerning. 40% of employees don't know their coworkers. 40% don't trust their coworkers. So we have all of this data. And then on top of that, the huge push shift to AI and automation and almost removing people from work. So my theory is that as we go deeper and deeper into the world of AI, which is happening, like that's just like where the world is going. It's like, look at technology and how it's shifted the workplace and life in the last 10, 20 years. I mean, you and I are millennials, elder millennials. Like we grew up, forget social media. We didn't even have cell phones, right? Like we had Oregon Trail. That's how much things have changed in just the last 20, 30 years. So think about what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10. So as we go deeper and deeper into AI influencing how we work, how we live, if we do not value our people in the same or more manner, like I'm not sure what we have left as a society, right? Like I'm not sure how we take care of our people. I'm not sure how we make sure that people live healthy, happy, fulfilling lives. So to me, this feels like I say the future of work is human connection and belonging. Like the future is the future of humanity relies on this, or I think we're in big, big trouble. So for me, it's kind of like a call of paying attention, like for all, and you and I both live in the Bay Area, for all of the talk around AI, for all the talk about like, oh, this is going to be like so efficient and this new tool. And some of these tools are really incredible and they allow people to do their work quicker, faster, better. If we're not also putting the spotlight on our people and their needs, I think we're in big, big trouble.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. I appreciate Craig throwing in a little question here. Do you think we need to rethink the idea of connection and getting our needs met via workplaces?
Yeah, this is a great thing. This came up last night in the conversation with Castley as well, Adam. Like, a lot of the data we were looking at around like remote and hybrid work, like people are happier when they're not going in to the office, right? And they're more productive and they're happier, right? And they're like, I don't have to commute. Sometimes I don't have to put on pants. I get more time with my children. I get more time with myself. I get more time in my house. I get more time with my family, with whoever. Like I get more time not in your work, like where I own my life, you don't own me. That's really important. Also, those same people are saying that they're more disconnected from their coworkers ever before. And we know that like they're going to do better work if they have higher levels of connection. And we know that they're also going to be happier if we have those levels of connection. So I think it's a yes and. Like work does not need to be the only place where people get their connection. And in fact, like it is really unhealthy if we're like, you can connect, but you have to do it from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. We'll give you a free dinner and a haircut. or yoga, but like stay here so you have no time with your family. Like that's not great. But I don't think it means that people can only shouldn't find connection at work, because that's a pretty miserable existence. And whether we like it or not, at least for most people, they have to spend a good portion of their lives working. I think we as a society, especially in the West and especially in the US, work too much, but that doesn't mean that it's like work should be somewhere where people don't deserve human connection and deserve deeper relationships. And so much of the research shows that when people find those relationships at work, they're more engaged with their jobs. They feel more fulfilled. They make more of an impact. They are able to connect more with their coworkers, with their communities outside of work because of the connections that they've made at work. So it's a yes and.
Totally. Yeah. And it just makes me think about, there's a little bit of this controversial opinion in some ways where so much of my work is around helping employees and teams and leaders create connection and lasting collaboration. But every once in a while, I run into some people who are just like, I absolutely do not want to become friends or unveil any personal information with my colleagues. I don't want to do that. So I'm kind of curious what you would say to those people too, who are just like, it's not a priority to me to connect with anyone. I have all my social needs met outside of work. So going to team building events and things like that feels like they have they feel they don't want to opt in.
Yeah, I think again, it's nuanced. I think that perspective, I think there's seasons. I think or there's days where you're like, I'm going in, I'm good. I don't want to talk about what happened this weekend. I don't want to talk about my kids. I don't want to talk about what's going on in my life. Like, I'm here to do a job. Like, you're paying me, I'm doing a job. I think that's okay. I think, and when that prompt comes around, you can be like, pass, skip. Yeah. I'm good. No, thank you today. Or no, thank you this week. Or no, thank you this month. Like, I'm good. I'm going through something and I got my people to talk to. But what I think is important is that those people don't get to create a culture where other people don't get to share. Mm-hmm. Or other people don't get to connect, who very much might want that. Yeah. Right. So it's like this subtle shift of yes, acknowledging that not everyone has to be best friends with their coworkers or go to all of these team building events or participate fully, but you don't get to create a culture where that participation is impossible for others.
Totally. Yeah.
And it's important to know that, and you know this from the research, and our dear friend Jenny Sauer-Klein talks about this a lot, that the research around vulnerability, the research around connection, it's it has to be reciprocal, right? It has to be two-way. You don't build a deep connection with somebody when one person is like, I'm in, let's do this, and the other person is like, no, thank you, bye. It's not good for that person. It's not good for the other person. So it has to be reciprocal. It has to be mutual self-disclosure, right? So and it's important to know that.
Yeah. And it's so nuanced, right? Because it's there's such a skill in creating these environments. We throw around the words human connection and belonging. There's a lot of apps that talk about we're creating human connection by just connecting people on their commonalities. But it's a lot of it feels like it's kind of one out of 1 to 10, it's 1 to 2. They're getting people to that first level, but to get people to the deeper levels of connection really takes, from my perspective, some skilled facilitation or some leadership capacities where people trust you enough to be bringing them into those deeper environments.
And to get back to what we were discussing earlier, it can't be this one-off, right? Yeah. It requires ritual, it requires time, it requires patience, all things that as a society we are not that great at. We live in a swipe right society.
Sure.
Yeah. We've moved past double clicking. We grew up in the double clicks, double click. That's too much. It's a swipe right society, right? The average attention span of a teenager right now is 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And these are people that are coming into work, and it takes a lot longer than 20 seconds to build a deep relationship. Some studies show it takes 90 hours with someone IRL for them to become a friend, 200 hours for them to become a close friend. And people say these are soft skills, these are human skills that require time and attention and patience, and not one-off events, but building human connection into the life cycle of the employee experience.
That's great. I see that this is awesome. Yeah, Juliana who's a friend who is calling in from Colombia. She's just referring to, how do you think belonging, connection, how do we think about that when we think about freelancers and self-employed people and all of our friends who are entrepreneurs or solopreneurs who are in the game, and they're in their living room or their bedroom on their computer every single day? Yeah, it's a great question.
It's a great question. With all of these things, I'm really quick to be like, I hate to be like a one answer. I don't like to prescribe. I think like everyone is so unique, and every individual needs so many different things based on their family, based on their health, based on whether they're introvert, whether they're extrovert, like where they do their best creative work. Like one thing might not work for somebody else. Things that have worked for me are really understanding that who I am and how I do my best creative work, and I need to be around other people. So like for me, that's like being part of a co-working space, like from a physical kind of day-to-day basis. Sometimes I like to work from home, and sometimes I like to go in, and I kind of decide what I'm going to do at each place. It also means joining professional communities. Like that's really important. A lot of people that work at companies and organizations are part of professional associations. Freelancers and people that run their own businesses also need to be part of professional associations, whether they call them associations or membership organizations or communities, whatever that looks like for you. Like that's really important, right? So you're a facilitator. I know you're part of a lot of different communities that are facilitators, that are artists. I'm part of a speaking community, thought leadership community called Impact 11. I'm also part of different author groups of people that are writing books together from all over the country, all over the world. That type of connection is really, really, really important, because I think that there used to be this whole thing of like, a freelancer or someone who's self-employed, like runs their own business, work from anywhere, like live on a beach, like be a digital nomad. Like, yes, like props if that works for you. That can get lonely very, 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 very quickly. And sure, work from wherever you want. And you also need human connection. Just because you don't have an employer or your employer is yourself doesn't mean that you don't need human connection. You need it also just as much, if not more.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some more really good questions I want to get to in a second, but I'm curious to dive into a little bit more of the research and the data, because again, this is something I really appreciate about you. For me, it's been such an important backbone of the research behind the why around this. So any sort of practical ideas for promoting belonging, human connection at work, but thinking about, I guess, maybe just diving a little bit into like the stats and the research that you talk about and that you've done so much work on.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just share, and I think it's important when like we start talking about data with belonging, because I think it's really important to note, just like on a human level, like belonging should be something that we do because it creates a more just, inclusive society, period, full stop. Like belonging is a core human need. It should be something that we value, period. Like because we care about people, because we want to build a better world. However, in the society we live in, and in the workplace specifically, it often gets cast as like, if we have budget for that, we'll do it, right? Yeah. So I really like to bring in the bottom line numbers, because I think it makes some people understand it. So lonely and disconnected employees, and this is data from Cigna, more missed days at work, double the sick days, 45% lower productivity, lower quality of work, higher risk of turnover. They cost their employers $154 billion per year. And then data from BetterUp shows that employees who have high levels of belonging, 56% increase in their job performance, 50% drop in turnover risk, 75% reduction in sick days, 18 times more promotions, 170% increase in your employer promoter score, the likelihood that you'll recommend your job, which results in an annual savings of $52 million for a company. So those are some pretty serious numbers, in addition to high levels of belonging, 24% more resilience, 36% better well-being, 83% more personal growth, 92% more professional growth. So all of the things that we're really looking for as an organization, belonging is a big factor in that. And I think those numbers can help sometimes with someone who might be a little bit like, yeah, these are really important initiatives or efforts, but like we have all these other things that we want to spend money on first. And I would like to say, hey, like this is just as important, if not more.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And then there's a couple folks in the chat that have asked, Pidge is saying, who lives in the San Francisco Bay Area, who's a friend of mine, who's a leadership coach and works in leadership development. I work in tech and I'm struggling to amplify the message around humanizing work and emphasizing connection in the advent of generative AI. Any tips or strategies for this scenario? So really around, I think it's like getting buy-in of like how people can amplify this message inside of their teams.
Great question. I think kind of similar to what we're talking about, sharing the data can be really important. I also think the experience of it, and that's one of the reasons I love your work, Adam, and your whole team at Late Nite Art, and the work you all do, and the work of so many of our great friends. Like, if you experience this, especially at work or kind of in a professional context, you, in my experience, you become a fan. You're like, because literally the neuroscience of it, like you literally feel the connection, you feel the transformation, you feel what it looks like to go deep, to be vulnerable, to connect with someone that you never met before, to connect with someone that you kind of were like, I don't know if I really, this person, like, I don't like this person, or I don't trust this person. And be like, I had no idea what they were struggling with. I had no idea this was their story. I had no idea this is their experience. Changes your perspective, like that curiosity, that creativity. So, I would say, yes, present the data, but also like have the event, like bring in a facilitator, like do Late Nite Art, do Magic of Human Connection, do Play on Purpose, do Breakthrough Play with Gary Ware, like all of our friends that do this incredible work, like bring those folks in and you experience it and you're like, oh yeah, generative AI, like that's there. Yeah, we need these tools. Like, yeah, we got Perplexity, we got ChatGPT, like OpenAI, like it's, like we're using these tools. They're not going anywhere. They're only going to become more of how we work. But like this connection work informs how we're going to use those tools.
Totally. And it's interesting how people think that, well, one person just asked, like, where can I find the stats? Where all the stats are written really clearly is Smiley's Workplace Belonging Toolkit, which is like in his background right there, which I got it here too. I have somewhere on my desk. I can't find it. Which we're going to put in the chat, which is like a free download. That's an amazing resource that has just a lot of ideas around like how do you take the first step as an internal employee or as an external consultant to like create more belonging connection in the workplace, in the world. So thank you for creating that. It's a beautiful resource. And I found it to be like really, really inspiring. But I think it's really interesting how hard, or how people don't really want to invest in the human connection piece. They think they can kind of just like get by just doing, like you said, happy hours, or just like every once in a while doing something. And so how important it is to have consistency and to have high quality facilitators or people who are able to create the space that allows for people to go into a deeper place in themselves. Because that's a really big part of it. Like you said, it's like when you experience it, but it's a funny thing to talk about human connection and to talk about creativity, because it's kind of a felt experience, right? So I know we are coming closer to the end. I'm just thinking, like, from your point of view, really wanting for folks to be able to like leave with like an important message or something that they can take forward into their workplaces to address disconnection. So curious, like what are the most important thing that you can imagine that people could really like come out of this with?
Yeah, it's tough to list one thing. I also just want to, there's so many great people that are chimed in on the chat. I want to say hi to Susan. I haven't talked to you in so long. I love all these comments. And I think this conversation is being recorded. It'll be right up on LinkedIn. So for folks that are asking, for one thing, I would say two things. I would say start small. I think like when we have these conversations, it's a little bit kind of overwhelming sometimes to be like, how do I create connection or belonging? Yeah. And my company is 500 people or 5,000 people or 50,000 people, or we're in 4 different states across the country. We're in 15 countries across the world in different time zones. And I think starting with those little moments of connection, right? So like, for example, like, how do I build connection into my next meeting?
Yeah.
Right. Like, how do I, you know, I like to say, like, try one new thing every meeting. It is incredibly difficult for the amount of meetings that we all have right now to try one new thing every meeting. Like, it is almost impossible. Like, someone should get like $1 million prize if they're actually able to do that.
Yeah.
But like a prompt, switching who facilitates, adding music, like changing the agenda, whatever it is, like adding a little moment of connection in the beginning, at the end, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 1 minute, even if it's a word, even if it's a moment of gratitude, even if it's an appreciation, those little things go such a far way. Obviously, there's so many different things, but I think starting with like those small shifts, those small actions goes a long way to creating the ripple so that other people start to do that as well.
And I'll just say, like, it takes a lot of bravery to do that. So like, I'm hoping that folks that are watching this video and that are commenting in the chat right now, it's like, it does take a courageous moment to interrupt the flow of the business meeting and to say, let's take 1 minute for people just to share where they're at right now.
Yes.
And every single time I do it, even though I do it all the time, it still feels a little bit of like an edge because people are kind of like, you know,
Yep.
And you can feel like people might not want to do that. So it takes a little bit of just knowing what's possible and knowing that like generally everyone will benefit from that. So I think we are moving towards a close. So, wow. Thank you so much, Smiley. It's so great to just be in conversation with you in real life and on video right now to talk about this. This is something we talk about all the time, but fun to have an audience and to create a structure to continue the conversation. We're going to post in the chat. One is Smiley's Workplace Belonging Toolkit, which again has all the stats and the research and a lot of cool next steps. And we're also going to post something that I created and the Late Nite Art team supported in building, which is called the Guide to Disrupting Disconnection at Work. That also has a lot of ideas and case studies around how organizations are taking steps towards building more connection in their workplace. So thank you for jumping in and joining us, everybody, on this little.
Yeah, thank you all for spending time with us today.
So fun. And we'll keep the conversation going on LinkedIn. And Smiley, I'll see you soon.
Take care, Adam. Thanks again.
See you, brother.
Bye.